All right, so now let's make something using this technique that's going to be like some jewelry. So, for instance, let's make a corset. So I'm going into the presets here, into the prime folder, 3D objects, humans, and let's pull out our female figure. Yeah, it takes a second, and let's just turn off textures for now. We don't really need them, but let's display this, and let's look at our what we got here. We only need to use the body, so let's get rid of the rest of this stuff. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make a selection around her waist, and we're going to build our corset based on a copy of that, so that way we know it's going to fit precisely. And if we were to skin the object, the skinning influence would also influence the corset, so it would move as she moved. All right, so now let's go into polygon mode, make sure she got her selected, and we'll start painting some selections. And I'm going to start just by doing just some basic ones, and then I'll go and tighten it up. See, I've got it going all the way through. And see, this is pretty nice mesh. You know, we've got not really a minimum of triangles, and has a nice flow that goes with the flow of the body. All right, so now let's turn this back on, and we're going to start getting rid of some things. I think that's going to be our edge there. So I'm using Control to deselect. And the back here, we missed two, using Shift to add, Control to get rid of. Oh, there's in her butt crack. Using Control to to deselect. And let's see what we got here. This might be enough. And let's see. All right, let's lose that row, and then we'll extend this row. In fact, I'm just going to use the ring select, and holding down Shift will give us just what we want, and that is looking just fine. And let's look at that bottom row. You know, I think I'm going to using Control here to get rid of that. I think I'm going to deselect this. And I think that is going to be as much as we're going to need, because we'll also be adding a trim onto this, so it'll be coming down maybe about halfway or something like that. All right, so now we've got all the polygons that we wanted selected. I'm right-clicking, and we want split. And now notice when I hit it, I get another object. This one, the polygons are still there. Let's just deselect, and then select this. Let's hide this guy, and there we go. We've got just that section of the body. All right, so now let's start by calling this corset, and let's go ahead and hit it with the polygon reduction. But before we do this, see, like here, see, we get some nice effects here. We're actually, that's maybe a little bit too strong. Let's have a little bit less influence, because, you know, after all, we want to see some pattern going around on her. Maybe not quite that much. Yeah, that's looking good. But before we get to this, let's turn this off. It's like, see, now if we've got her, we don't want to be flush with her skin. We want to just be out a little bit. So instead of using scale, here, let's Control All. Oops, set this polygon now. Control A. We're going to go into Mesh, Transform Tools, Normal Move. Now, this will just move each polygon forward on its normal a little bit. Because if you hit a scale, like here, watch what happens if we hit scale, even just a little bit, it's doing it, but it's kind of doing it diagonally in a bunch of different ways. Now, watch the what happens. All right, give it a chance to check. catch up. Now watch what happens to the normal move. See, it puffs out, but it just goes straight on the normals. So we have a nice consistent space between her skin and the material itself. All right, so now that's looking like it's the right size. And now when we have this this active, see, we can see we're still getting a little bit of inner penetration, but not too much. All right, so let's go ahead and hide that body. And let's look at our corset here. And let's do a current state to object. Get rid of this stuff. And let's hide that one for now. And now, once again, do the similar technique. Control all with the edges. Put it in a subdivision surface. And let's make sure this is just down to 1. And let's see what our mesh is looking like. That's looking pretty cool. All right, let's once again, current state to object. Hide this guy. All right, and there we've got the ones selected that we're ready to dissolve. So let's go ahead and just hit dissolve. All right, looking nice. All right, let's hit Control A. But now we don't want to select these edge the openings at the top and the bottom, because we're not going to be making any sort of thickness out of that. So let's go into our select tools and find outline selection. And now with holding down Control, we're going to deselect those edges. Kind of a little hard to see it. You see when I get close to it, it's lighting up. Hold down Control, click. No longer selected. Let's do it. Looks like it got it on the bottom too. All right, looking good. So now let's use our Bevel tool. And just a little bit, just like before. Looking good, looking good. All right, go into Polygon, delete them, and let's check it out. Looking pretty cool. But of course, this would be uncomfortable. So let's get ready to make a trim. So I'm going to go back into one of the previous versions. Oh, looks like we got some crazy stuff going on here. See, now if we had tried to bevel that whole top thing, we would have gotten a lot more of these guys. So here I'm just going to go into point mode, and I'm just going to select these points, delete, and let's see. I think we've got a couple more here, and this triangle here is also something we want to get rid of, and a couple more here and there. I'm just selecting and deleting. And just as I go, if I run into them, I'll delete them. But it's good not to have just like flying points left around. They can definitely give you some troubles down the line. All right, so now let's get ready to make a trim for this. So hold on S to center our mesh. And let's make visible the unreduced version of this one right here. So I'm going to just go ahead and make a copy of this. I'm going to call this trim. Get rid of that. Make it visible. And here, I'm going to just be using these bottom and top trim pieces, but I don't need, they're a little bit thick, so I'm going to adjust it. So let's go here, and we use loop selection, and hit there, and then slide, And I'm going to slide that until I have just about the amount of space that I need. All right. And then let's do that on the bottom too. So let's get loop and slide. And basically, we're leaving about as much thickness as the thickness of this. That's the idea. All right. So now let's go into ring selection in polygon mode. And I'm going to just select the little trim things we just made. And then hold down Shift. And we'll select that top one there. All right. And then we will invert our selection and delete. All right. So we're still getting a little bit of overlap there. That's no problem. Let's just select our trim. Hit Control A. Oops. Sorry. Just trim and Control A. So we're just selecting all of its polygons. And at this point, we can just scale it a little bit because we do want it to go up a little bit as well. There we go. Looking good. And I think I might even, actually that's a little bit too much. Let's maybe select each one and edit them separately. So let's start by bringing this just down a little bit, and then just a little bit of scale where we want it. All right. There we go. Same with the other one. Just up a little bit so we're clearing those edges. We've got room to weld. And then see the discrepancy. Just scale it out to match that. Looking good. Looking good. All right. Now we're ready to make this one object so we can start welding this all together. But notice the thing we're going to be welding to is going to be a little bit big. So I think I'm going to subdivide these the trim pieces. So let's just select everything, and I go here and let's see, where's subdivide. And I'm going to hit the little gear here because we want to just do once. Now let's see what we got there. Yeah, see, that did not quite do what I wanted. Let's maybe try another method. Let's see if we can just do this with a knife tool. So I'm going to go in here and go ring. And now let's see if this will give it to. Now this is going to cut the other way, I think. All right, well, I think we'll just weld them. I think it'll be fine. All right, so let's use our poly pen tool, and let's get ready to start welding these things together. All right, so first of all, let's select both of these, and then go connect objects and delete. And I'm going to have corset with a capital C, just so it's a little easier for me to know what's going on here. And just call this mesh. So this way I kind of know this is my together one, where these other ones are just the ones in the process of it. All right, so let's deselect. And poly pen is a fun tool to use. And so here, we're just going to go here, and it welds. It automatically welds. And now before we go on a little bit, and actually, I think I'm going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to control drag. So you see I'm actually creating another polygon. so that way these transitions won't be quite so as extreme. And now, see, I've just done a couple here. I'm going to go in and start building up my my 3D aspect. So let's go into simulate cloth surface. Bring that down, make the corset mesh a child of that, and let's set this up the way we had the others. I'm going to give this a negative value. And now you can see the scale of our model is really different, because here we're just going in 1 inch and it looks way too thick. So we got to use some minus fraction. Let's try 0.2. See what that gives us. Yeah, that's looking about right. All right, well now let's select this, and here I'm actually going to maybe see our subdivision going here too. Looking good, looking good. And now you see here we're seeing our mesh and all the cloth surface and the subdivision surfaces behind us. That is the reason I'm initially using a negative value when doing this. If I were to leave this at the negative value when I made my final collapsing of this mesh, it would interpenetrate with the skin. So after I'm all finished, I'll go back and make this a positive value. But let's go back in and weld all these pieces together. So see, how when I mouse over it, just control and then drag, and then it welds. And let's go and hit this edge, and we'll build this up. Yeah, so you can have it in a little bit more gradual of a taper. I think looks a little nicer. You know, if you want, you can just do that too. But yeah, it looks a little thick in my opinion. Oops. Holding down Control to have it create the additional polygon. All right, I'll bear you some of the drudgery of this welding. Hold on, and let me go back in and kind of weld this all up, and I'll get back to you when I'm finished with that. All right, there we go. I've welded all the trim together. So here, let's check it out a little bit. I'm going to give it a color. Like that. All right. All right, let's check it out with the attached to her. And now, see how we're getting some interpenetration? Let's go into our cloth surface. And we'll just get rid of that negative sign there. There we go. Looking good. Fits her like a glove. Better than a glove. And in this particular case, if you were going to print this, you would just go ahead and say current state to object, and then you would have this mesh. But if you wanted to have this character skinned, what you would do is you would have this sharing the skinning of your character, and then the rest of this would just follow along with that. So you wouldn't have any problems with like the mesh pinching or buckling while it was moving. And you can see how this could work with a whole set of body armor. You could do armbands, neck, a helmet, and you could have it all based on her mesh and have you know, a very tight conforming body armor with lots of crazy details. All right, I hope this was useful, and next time we'll do a couple some jewelry items.